Yes, I'm gonna share my screen.
Okay, great. Thanks for going. And you will all, real fast, you never need to ask us whether we can see your screen, because I will tell you if I can't see your screen. Okay, so just assume that it works. Thanks. All right, go.
Cool. So this is our design over here. So we have a few kind of main points from Fitt's Law that we touched on. One of them is making the buttons for the categories bigger, because that means that the users will be more easily able to see them and access them. We also put them closer together so that users will be easily able to travel in between the buttons. And I think other people in my group are going to fill in as well. But one thing that we took from the paper that we read was the structure of the drop-down menu. And we created a kind of like split drop-down menu in which the first three things in the drop-down were the top categories for that subcategory. And then everything after that is alphabetically ordered so that there is some sort of familiarity and some sort of structure to the way things are organized on the page. Does anyone else from my group want to say anything?
Yes, and we've put up the create a posting and my account button on the top taskbar so that we have a familiar, the users who are using this web page will be familiar, and so that they can because all of us are familiar to creating the account on the top right. So we put that feature too. And basically, we've at the bottom in the footer, we've put the event calendar and the FAQs so that they are visible. And we've kept the buttons large so that it's easy, that according to Fitt's Law, it's easy that the buttons are easily visible and it takes less time to trigger the buttons.
And so I guess one more thing is that we noticed that the categories were kind of just scattered all over the place. So something that we wanted to mention is that when we do put this into practice, our algorithm will put the most popular categories up at the top here, and then it will kind of go in that order. So we assumed that for sale and jobs were pretty important.
Okay,
so, yeah.
Very good. Yeah, so I think the feedback that I have is, you definitely thought about how often people are going to click on different things. I think that's really good. The one thing I would say here is if you look at the size of different items, for example, help FAQ abuse, that takes up a bunch of space. And so you really want to think about the ratio of how important something is, how often somebody's going to use something, not only just how easy it is, but how often are they going to click on something, right? So I love that you have, like, for example, you said for sale and jobs are very popular. Let me put them up front. That's great. And I love that you have things like my create a post in my account, and the locations are great, but you want to think about the sizing to be also appropriate to how often somebody's going to do something, right? So if you're not going to click on help FAQ that often, you don't need to make it so large. You can click on it and then it would expand, for example, but you want to make sure you give a lot of space. So, all right, but good job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next.
And then for yeah, I'll be presenting for the group 2.
Okay.
All right. Hi, everyone. This is the group 2 presentation. So to start off with, we've already seen the current design right now. What our group did was to kind of like outline what was the problem with the current design. So first of all, we realized that the buttons were very small. Which according to Fitt's Law, that increases the level of precision needed to click the button, and thus it increases the movement time, because now the user has to like be very precise where they click and how long it takes. We also realized that the small width of the button was also a problem, and increased the index of difficulty, which is the error rate, and so there exists a high likelihood that the wrong button could be clicked. And then also from the paper that we read, it was researched that users tend to navigate the web pages from a top to bottom manner. So the current design of the website hides categories such as gigs and resumes. You have to scroll all the way to the bottom to discover it. So we came up with our own design, and I'm gonna play the video right now.
So just to add a little more context to the design, we did make the buttons bigger, and we hid the things that we thought were less important, like the discussion and the gigs and the resume. You can access them with
2
one more
minutes.
button. And yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. Can you go back a slide? First of all, great job identifying what was the issues with the previous design. So I thought that was really, really good. And I think that, again, you all did a great job thinking about the size of different items. So some feedback here is, I think this isn't really part of the paper. So this is just more of an overall feel. It's really trying to explain the user flow through this experience, right? So you really want to think when the user lands on this page, what are they going to do? Is the ordering of things, is they're going to read things from left to right? They're going to really read things from top to bottom. Do they know what the site's about? Do they know how to use the different items, and is it in the right ordering? So I would just kind of give feedback on the ordering of things. So is community the most important thing? Is jobs, services, and then also would people know what to do when they got onto this page? Do they know what the goal is for Craig's list, right? Okay. But again, I thought you all did a really good job analyzing why the current page has had the errors with that. So good job with that. All right. Thank you.
Next.
Mohan, if you ever want to try, if you have anything additional too, feel free to add. All right, let's go group 3.
I'll be presenting my group's project.
Okay.
Okay, so this is Craigslist Gainesville. So what our group noticed is that there are a lot of categories, and like all the categories have a lot of options. So suppose if a user wanted to go like from activities to writing, he will have to move his mouse from one edge of the screen to like the other edge, and like diagonally. And another thing that we notice is that the search is all the way like here, so people might not see it, and a lot of options on both the left side of the screen and the right side of the screen. And especially the text here is like it's too close by and it's too small, so it requires accuracy. And then like it's overall very hard to like look for certain categories. Like if I wanted to look for computers, I'd have to scroll all the way down here. So what our project came up with was like a radial menu, because like obviously Fitt's law supports the theory of radial menus. As if a user has to go from one option to another, he will have to travel the same amount of distance. And like for all the subcategories, we added a drop down menu. So like drop down menus also help the user go through the menus quicker and use less mouse movement. And then we used icons to make it more readable, like easily. Like suppose if someone wanted to look for the login option, he can just see the icon, which is familiar with most of the users. And then for the calendar as well, we implemented an icon. And then the search is at the top right in the front of the user, so he does not have to look for it like over here. And then other than that, we added a big button that says please scroll down for more options. So if a user was looking for like all of these, which like users don't use very much, it's not cluttering the screen. The user can scroll down and look for them. And then we also added a featured categories here. If the user does not want to go through this radial menu to look for certain things, he might find it here quicker. So yeah, that's our group's design. If anyone from my group wants to add anything. Yeah, and another thing is we tried to go for some sort of symmetry. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good job in explaining the difficulties in the first one, really pointing out that, hey, in the Craigslist design, you really have a lot of small buttons is functionally what you have, right? So on your new design, I love that you decided to try a radical different approach, right? Something we can definitely A/B test and test out. That's really great. I would say make sure you spell our company's name correctly. It's Craig is plural, so you want to make sure you don't miss that. But otherwise, I think you applied a lot of great HCI principles of of symmetry. The only thing is like when you say scroll down for more options, you have to give people what those options might be, right? So like, why would I go down there and go explore, right? So if you want to give people a reason to explore, you have to let them know why they might want to click for more options, right? So you got to that's one HCI tip. All right. Otherwise, great job. Let's move on to group 4. And yes, radial buttons real fast. That is the people study that. So the idea is the radial buttons, you don't have to be very accurate, and you can get, you can actually get a lot of choices. People want to be very accurate, but it takes up a lot of real estate. The other thing that's really good is people can memorize radial buttons a lot better. That's why you see that in a lot of video games, because radial buttons, you can do that without having to look at the screen that often. All right, let's move on.
All right, I guess I will be sharing for our group. I can. Okay. It's over. So one of the first things we noticed about the current Craigslist website is the amount of clickable content on the page. This adds a large amount of information, slow the decision-making process down, which is part of the Hick-Hyman law. Sorry. It also means there's less space for the target link to occupy, which is part of the Fitt's law. In our design, we turn the major groupings into larger clickable images with two methods to display the subsections, either a drop-down list at the side of the group or by clicking the image to produce a pop-up that would show subgroups. The groups are also arranged in column and row format with similar groups closer together, such as having jobs, gigs, and resumes on the same row. We also moved the standard website items such as login, privacy statement, terms of use, etc., to the areas of the screen more commonly seen on many websites, such as my account up in the top right corner, privacy policy, terms of use in the bottom footer area. The last big change we made to the website is in relocating the search bar to the top center and including a subsection dropdown in the search right here. This brings the search bar to a more accessible area common to many popular websites and allows the user to perform a more focused search. And our team can build this out for you for the low price of $557,000. We look forward to your business.
All right, well done. I like the pitch. I like you're playing the character, so good job. So one thing I also want to give comment to this would also be very good for a responsive design. So what you've laid out here would be very good if you were seeing this on a tablet or on if you were to resize the window, this would play very, very well with that. So I want to give combination, and it would probably translate quite well to a mobile app version too. So I want to highlight that whenever you design well for one interface, you often get lots of nice residual benefits for across many interfaces, right? So I think that's really, really, that's one piece of feedback that I give. I like that you put things in, that you put them into places where people look for it. I think a lot of teams are seeing that. For example, the search where they have it on the Craigslist webpage is not where we look for search on most places. So that I would give you positive feedback on that. All right.
I think that also aligns with the mental model which you'll be doing for next assignment. People know that my account will always be in the top right corner, so people try to find there. So that's a good job.
Right. That's going to be the topic for the next paper, which is mental models, which is where people expect to see stuff. Right. So that's a mental model is what they're expecting. Okay. So you want to play into people's mental models anytime you can. All right. Let's move on to the next group.
Okay. Let me share my screen. So going back to Craigslist, issues that we saw with Fitt's law, like everyone said before, is just the size of the links. They're just so tiny, and everything's so cluttered. There's so much that has to be read through to figure out, like, if I want to find jewelry, like I have to scroll down through this list, as well as the nearby cities. We found that was very taxing time-wise, and we didn't like how you have to sort of scroll down to see again resumes and gigs. We wanted everything to be on one page to reduce the movement time and the search time. So in our design, we fixed the cities by making this a drop down, so it would be like larger and people could see that they could like switch easily. We moved the search to the center to make it again like the mental model, like follow where people believe that search and like user and create postings might be at the top, sort of like the more important things. We added this menu bar to have, so when you're not a user, it would be like the most popular subcategories of the day or like of the week. But then if you are a user, it would be based off of what you commonly use the most. So like say the top 5 categories. So it would just be ease of access. And then we blocked off each category into larger sections so that we could read the headings better. Because in here it's sort of smaller. We wanted them to be larger. And then we cut down the amount of subcategories also based off of what are like the most popular in each section. These are sort of random because I was just copying and pasting them, but then users, if they wanted to find another one that wasn't listed here, could click more. We kept the event calendar on this side because we figured that's sort of an important feature. And then also added a little like slider of events that were happening, like either on that day or whatever was featured. We kept all of the small buttons at the bottom.
Okay. All right. So I think you all did a really great job here, really cleaning up the interface. I think what I'm noticing with this one, with, for example, housing, what you're trying to do with the choices there is you're trying to give people a hint as to what does housing mean, right? What are the different options? But then you don't want to put everything in there like the main Craigslist page does, because it's overwhelming. How do you give people sort of that blend where you can say, hey, here's what it means by jobs, and what type of jobs are even available via Craigslist? And then you want them to be able to jump in there. So I think that's going to be one of the challenging parts with this design, is to think about how can we give people a flavor of what goes in a category without overwhelming them, right? And how do you choose which ones? So you talked about, I know that this is just cut and paste, and you can imagine some sort of intelligent algorithm giving you the top choices. So I like that you're trying to balance letting people know what's inside a category, like what is for sale on Craigslist. Some of the other ones that we saw, you wouldn't know until you clicked into it, right? What is available. So I just wanted to highlight that that's a positive on your design. You'd have to think of a simple way so it doesn't overwhelm somebody with too many choices on this main page. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Let's move on to the next one.
Hi, so I'll be presenting for room 7.
Okay.
The first impression that our group got from going to the Craigslist website was that there was way too much clutter on the screen, too many options, making it hard to locate what you actually want to do. So in line with Fitt's law, the first thing that we wanted to do was move the most prominent features, such as performing a search and adding a new listing, to more central sections of the screen and make them larger in their real estate, making them easier to access, easier to locate. What we also wanted to do was that the nearby location section on this screen, we felt it didn't add as much functionality, but took up way too much real estate. So we decided to get rid of that section and instead add a change location option right up the top as a replacement. Similarly, with the event calendar, since events is a subcategory, we felt the event calendar would be better located in an event subsection screen instead of on the home page. We also moved the account management to the top right and the language selection also to the top, in line with various existing interfaces and in line with common practices. With the menu design, we decided to go with a tiered menu, providing the primary categories in order of how frequently they are accessed. On clicking each option, you get the subcategories, which are also in the order of how frequently they're accessed. So household appliances and electronics being higher up on the list. And then we would have a third tier on the menu, which would select, give you your subcategories. This is all in line with reducing clutter, increasing real estate space for each button, because we noticed a lot of the existing buttons were hyperlinks where you have to click the text itself. So it's all in line with Fitt's law, making locating these options easier, clicking them easier, and making it easier on the eyes in general. We also moved all your FAQs, legal policy to the bottom banner, which is also in line with most existing interfaces. There was redundancy with them being on the left panel and bottom panel on the original Craigslist screen.
All right. So great job with this one. I also want to highlight this would also work very well on different devices, which is really, really good. So this one would work well, for example, on a mobile phone. It also would work well on, let's say, a tablet. So I think you did a great job prioritizing what needs to be clicked on. You really went all the way and said, okay, what are the main things? And we're only going to provide that up front. So I think that it's a really good strategy for reducing clutter by prioritizing and making the sizes ratio to how often somebody's going to need something. So good job with that. Okay.
I could relate this interface to Amazon website if you try to.
I would agree. We had some inspiration from there.
Yeah, that's right. Now that you say that, it's almost like sampling music. Sometimes you hear a song and then you're like, oh yeah, this is sampled from this other website. So yes. Okay. Good job.
Thank you.
All right, we're on room 8. I think we're keeping up on time. It's not bad. All right, room 8, 3 more. We can't hear you if you're speaking.
Sorry, I will be presenting for group 8. And what we found about the Craigslist was too clustered. And so we took all the So what we did was we took all the important components and we put it out on bigger icons such that it will be easier to access. And we made the menu in such a way that it will occupy the entire space and all the menu items would be categorized according to activities. Because when users, they mostly look for the first letter. So we have created into those accounts and we have created all the icons in bigger manner, and we have centrally aligned the search for them to easily access all the items. And we put all the ad postings, and these would be the most important components and most frequently accessed ones. So we made bigger icons for them so they could be accessed all on the page, and you wouldn't have to scroll down to reach from one item to the other. So if any of my teammates wants to add anything to it.
Yeah, also we've created the account button for the user so they can access it right here, and all the ones like about, help, careers, and all of that to the bottom of the page where usually people look for it.
Okay. So yeah, I think you all did a great job. I like the sizing of different things. One thing I want to highlight, you've put search in the very middle, right? So what that does is that it changes the Craigslist, the mental model of people using this. Instead of a browsing task, this is a searching task, right? So if you look at the original Craigslist, people would go there and go, what do I want to buy today? What do I want to, what jobs are available? This is different. This is saying, hey, it's like Google. I want to search. This is a search task. It means you know what you want to, for example, you want to buy something, you want to buy a PlayStation 5, you're going to type it in here and you're going to get that, versus you're trying to browse. Oh, I wonder what people are selling. So I just want to highlight that by putting search in the middle, you're changing what you're telling people Craigslist is about. That's not bad or good. I'm just saying, like, that's something that we could test out whether people like that, because maybe 99% of the people go there anyways because they know exactly what they want to buy. And all that is just getting in the way, and they love this super streamlined one. Or perhaps maybe you would say, are you losing some of the people who like to go into Craigslist because they're bored and they just want to browse what's available nearby, right? More of like the Facebook Marketplace sort of style. So anyways, that's just a thought of a comment about the mental model shift you cause by having something like search in the middle. You're saying, hey, our site is a different type of site than the original Craigslist, which again is something we as a company, we would like to test out and see whether people like that. Okay. All right. Good job. Let's move on. All right. Group 9.
All right. I'm going to present, but I think one of my, yeah, there it is. So as you can see, we kind of went with the radial menu. There was a couple issues that we wanted to really highlight, like that we thought were main functionalities, like creating a new post. We wanted that to be bigger and like easier to click on and find. Search bar, same thing. We kind of moved it up to more where you would expect to see it and made it bigger. the calendar as well, like the really little tiny calendar was hard to read and not very useful. So we kind of optimized that to be easier to read. Same thing with kind of like moving the login to where you would expect to see it and more like what it looks like on other sites. So the radial menu was like the biggest change, and that like is in line with Fitt's law for a number of reasons, but really it reduces the error rate and how far you have to travel, like is the same distance for every single category. And then kind of eliminating having all the subcategories like all over the place and just putting them right in the middle of the page. So like it's highlighting the category that you really wanted to look at. Let's see. So we reduced some of the like redundancy of just like the buttons on the left by moving them to the bottom, which allowed us to make the buttons on the left that we kept there, make them bigger and easier to click on, also reducing the error rate and travel time. And I think that was about it, unless someone from my team wants to add anything.
All right. Well, so a couple of clarifications. A radial menu is radial around the cursor. Okay, so just having a circular menu is not necessarily a radial menu. And I know another group had also talked about radial menus. So radial menus, the idea behind it again is when you click on something, it opens up a menu around the cursor because then Fitt's law applies, right? So the problem, not the problem, I mean, how this isn't a true radial menu is if your mouse is not in the middle, then it doesn't really, you don't get a lot of the Fitt's law benefits that you would for a traditional radial menu. So I want to make sure that people get that clarification. Just because it's a circular layout does not make it a radial. You don't get necessarily the Fitt's law benefits. I mean, again, the things I like about this is you've really cleaned up a lot of things. I like that things are in locations that people expected. I would recommend spelling the town's name correctly. I think that's pretty important in an app like this. But overall, I like that you tried to do something different with the arrangement. All right, so there's a quote you can make. All right, go ahead, and the next team, go ahead, set up here. I'll go ahead and address this one. By Christopher, you could make the argument that familiar structure and closeness of the object still makes it beneficial in terms of Fitt's law. Yeah, I mean, the buttons are bigger and they're arranged in a good way. So I think that's all positives. But I want to make sure when we think about radial and what a lot of benefits are, especially whenever you talk about not having to look. That's one of the major benefits of muscle memory for radial menus. You don't get a lot of that for that arrangement. Okay, last one, group 10, Greg's list.
Okay, so I am going to present this. So first of all, what difficulties do we find in the Craigslist present website? So there are some difficulties which are mentioned here. The target is too small. The target for any option is very small. There is too much clutter on the web page. The distance between two, if I want to go from the first to the last, the movement time is too large. So to address this, totally against Fitt's law. Like Fitt's law says the target should be larger and smaller. The distance between the target should be less, so we get lesser movement time. So let's see what did we have in our designs. Okay, so this is a design which we wanted to create. So we took inspiration. The boxy design took inspiration from Amazon. And this search bar, the large search bar, we took inspiration from the Google search. Then we use the mental models of all mental models for the accounts, for the contact us. And we also wanted to remove the clutter from the Craigslist. So we only kept the important settings like the translation, calendar, events, and posting. So if you click on any menus, you will get a larger menu design in which we have the sub menu and which all the items are written next. So we in the paper we read the about drop down and categorizing them so that the search time becomes less. So we went ahead and revamped that as well. So we, instead of making it drop down, we made it another sub menu in its own so that the targets are even larger and we get the user get the search time can be less.
All right. Yeah, lots of positive feedback on this. I think that you really took into account how much time people are going to, the size of targets. I think that that's really, really important. Again, this thing would also work well with resizing on the responsive design. So I think you all did a great job on that. And I like, again, where you're putting things where people expect things to be, right? Okay, so good job. Go ahead, Mohan.
I wanted to point one thing that here they took another perspective of like create a posting. I'd like this is from different type of user who wants to post something, and I think that this interface actually focuses on that too, not just exploring different options.
Yeah, well, one thing I'm going to point out, all the different designs that this one hints at it, but not many people really focus on it, the create a posting, right? So a lot of this has been a browsing centric system, almost all of us, either searching or browsing. If you are a company and go, you know what, we're not having enough people posting items, these designs, we haven't really pushed that to the forefront, right? So it's just something to think about from a company perspective. One thing you might get from the marketing team or the sales team saying, hey, we're getting lots of traffic, but we're not getting enough items being listed. There, you know, one of the thoughts you all might have is like, how would we redesign our system to promote that? Because a lot of people might like browsing, but might not like selling because they might feel that it's unsafe, or I don't know whether, you know, is Craigslist going to take a lot of the money from me if I sell something or something like that, right? So that's just something to think about. That's just a broad note. Whenever I saw the different designs, I was thinking, if that's just from a company perspective, how you might get input from other sections of the company that you might impact your design here. And again, if, for example, you heard from your sales side that there are just not enough items being listed, you would want to redesign your interface to push something like that. How would you make not only creating a posting big enough, but also let people know what the different steps are in the promote? All right. Good job, everybody. I thought this was a good first paper. Second paper, Mohan, right, is already posted. So we're going to do this same thing next week. We're going to have you, again, have an activity together, apply it. Again, the goal here is we didn't want you, prior semesters, we just had people read the paper and then they would just write a recap and then they move on. Hopefully by actually applying it and talking about it with your group, you have a deeper understanding of what these laws really mean and really able to enhance your thinking about it and actually apply it and have to present about it. Okay. All right.